What's up, guys? Welcome back to Cool Fred's Bimmer Tech. So this right here is day 2 of me working on the 4 Series, the 428, doing the turbo coolant lines. So yesterday I got the turbo out of there. So I'm pretty much just getting back out here. So go ahead and turn my light on here. But you can see the turbo coolant lines right there. So I'm about to get those replaced. So they got a T30. This one right here has come out first, and then you can take this one out. So it's a T30 screw that holds both of them. You can kind of see one of the screws right here, right there. Then the other one is on the other one. So those are not too bad to get those replaced. So I'm gonna start replacing those lines here shortly, but so this right here is a few of the parts I got. Got new nut to secure the turbo. So in part 1 of this, I did like a little overview and talked about, you know, what you got to do to get it out of there. Some of the parts I'm replacing it with. So pretty much like right here, I got all the seals and O-rings. So this is important. Got the seals for the oil supply line right there. Got a seal for the oil drain line, and also the gasket. So I know I'm gonna put this in there. I didn't have to mess with the other one, so I'll probably just hang on to that one. I didn't have to disturb that one, so I'll probably leave that one. But while it's out, I'm gonna replace both of the seals on the oil supply line, and these right here are the new parts. So I'm gonna get those out of the bag, show you guys what those new turbo coolant lines look like. All right, so these are the new turbo coolant lines right here, the supply and the return. Now this is the part number. This right here is the part number to this one, which is the one that goes about, I guess, midway of the block to the turbo. This one goes to the front of the block to the turbo. And this right here is the part number to this one. So they already come with the new O-rings on them. So they look like they updated the O-rings. So I saw this on another repair that I did. I replaced some oil feed line and some turbo coolant lines on the car that I had at work, which I saw that they updated to the blue O-rings, because these are normally orange. So I'm not sure if the difference in color makes a difference, or maybe they just changed part suppliers. So that's what they look like. I'm gonna go ahead and get those other ones out and put these in. Pretty much before I put these in, I like to put a little bit of like some type of you can use Vaseline or any type of petroleum jelly, just a little coat of it, but some type of lubricant. Maybe WD-40 will work. I'm not sure, but you don't want to. You just want to put a little bit of coat. That way, when you put it in, you're not like cutting the seals, or it's not going in dry. Because if you put these in dry, sometimes you can kind of prematurely mess up the seals, the O-ring. So, I also mentioned that. So when I was taking these out, some of the studs pulled out with the head. I mean, with the studs pulled out of, well, they came out of the cylinder head. It's just so basically I have to put them here in my vise and get the nuts off. So that was this one right here. And then I also mentioned in the last video how, just in case, I kind of came a little bit more prepared. So I brought some of my tools that I have from work, like this tap and die set. So I'm able to kind of repair some of the treads, the bolt threads and the stud threads, just in case I need to. So and I'm lucky enough to have a vise here on my workbench here. So I just have to I got a few more studs I got to get out, and I'm gonna put these studs back into the cylinder head, because that's gonna be important. That way they're already in there. And I got new nuts that go on the studs. Let's see what else. And I also kind of bought me a little goodie bag from work. So sometimes on the old, because a lot of times with the studs and stuff have issues. A lot of times, because it's a lot quicker, we just go to the, you know, when I'm at work, we'll just go to the parts. You know, us technicians will normally just go to the parts counter and just get some new studs. But a lot of times I'll hang on to a few of the old ones, because a lot of times all you have to do is put them in a vise and you can get the nuts out. So just in case I run into an issue, like this one right here, this is one of the ones where I'm trying to separate it and it's just not budging. So I can pretty much just toss this to the side, and I got a backup. I got a couple backups in here. Actually, I got like 2 of them. So I brought 2 extras with me. And then, so that way, if I run into a snag, I'm able to get myself out of a jam. So, now that we got all this out of the way, I'm gonna go ahead and so yeah, these are the exhaust flange gaskets. I don't know if I talked about those yet. So the turbo is gonna get resealed with those new gaskets that go between the manifold and the cylinder head. So I'm actually gonna pull that out from under there and talk about that turbocharger a little bit before I start going back together. All right, so I'm up under the car here, about to go ahead and get. So I got my T30 here on this Milwaukee electric ratchet, battery powered. So it's a little tricky for me to hold the camera and get up in here, but I'll at least try to move that one. All right, so I'm up under the vehicle. I got my Milwaukee electric ratchet with a T30 on it. So hopefully it's not too long, but I'll show you guys me removing, trying to get this coolant hose out of here. So hopefully the lighting's not too bad. I got a light under the vehicle, but you know, it is dark up in here than the angle that I'm at. So let's see. So I got that screw loose. So, and you can tell that these things have been leaking real bad. Got coolant residue all under here. So this oil right here is coming from that drain passage up there where the oil supply line goes. That's the oil feed line. So there's a right there. So that's what that's leaking from. So I'm gonna clean that up and just top that off. So it'll be okay once we put that line back up there. So let's see. This should just work this way off. Sometimes I have to get a tool or something to kind of pry up under there and pop it out. So in this case, I'm gonna use this right here to help me pop that off. So I'm trying to see if I can get it from this angle here at the top. Sometimes I probably can, or I may have to go back underneath the vehicle and get it. So there we go. So that's that one. And the other one just has a screw right there. And I mean, it's pretty much like removing this one. Just gonna get that screw and just pull it out. Alright, so I just pulled the last turbo coolant line out. So, of course, this one has to go in first, and then you put the other one in. So, but pretty much the main source of the leak. So this one right here is the one that was leaking real bad. So, looks like the O-rings are ate up pretty bad on it, but most of it is just this rubber hose in here between the rubber, and it's got this little heat shielding on there, and it's probably got like a clamp or something in the rubber hose. So that's pretty much where it was leaking. Like I said, this is one of the worst ones that I've seen. That's what I said in the first part of the video. But yeah, this right here, because this thing's leaking so bad that it had coolant like all over the driveway. Pretty much, it's almost like when you put coolant in it, it's coming right back out. And this was the source of that leak. All right, so what I'm about to do next, I guess the first thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna finish getting the rest of these studs separated, so I can put those studs back in the head. Alright, so I'm gonna take this die right here and chase my threads. Chase all the threads, make sure they're good, and put them back in the head. Because gotta do that to get the turbo secured back on there. And also there's a torque sequence that you gotta follow. Basically, you kind of start in the middle and go outwards. So I think I have it on my phone, but I don't have the exact printout, but I kind of remember it because I did one the other day. So I'll kind of show you guys, give you guys a little brief, demonstration of kind of how you go by tightening it up. All right, so I got my, so I got the nuts removed off of these studs, and I'm repairing the threads. So I'm just using this die to chase the threads to make sure they're nice and straight. That way when I get ready to put the nuts on them, like, because if one is slightly cross-threaded, like, because in some cases if they're coming out and you're trying to put them on, the threads can get cross-threaded. So I'm just making sure it's good, so when I go back. So I'm down to the last two. So I'm about to put these in the block in a minute after I finish cleaning up this last one here. All right, so I'm putting the last two studs up here. So taking the time out to kind of do this, like chase your threads on your studs. So stuff like this kind of, I mean, you're just saving time in the future, because last thing you want to do is try to put a stud back that maybe the threads are kind of messed up on. So they're not going to go all the way in. It's not going to torque down right. And you don't, and sometimes the nut, when you get ready to put that on, it gets to a point where you get it halfway tight and it doesn't want to tighten anymore. Because the last thing you want to do is break one of, like, get one of those nuts, either like round it off where you can't get it out, or I've never broken a stud, but I mean, let's say in the case where you break a stud, maybe on some of the up north vehicles that have a little rust in some areas, you know, you never know. I mean, so if you need to replace the stud, it's best to replace the stud now, or if you can put it in the vise and remove the nut and then trace the threads, that's the best thing to do. Because when I get ready to put the turbo back on, like, I pretty much know that I'm gonna be good. And this is just based on experience of me dealing with a couple, you know, just over the years. I just know, like, dealing with a couple of those putting those nuts on, you're trying to torque the turbo down, and you're trying to figure out, you know, you got the bolt the nut in about halfway, but it seems like it should go a little bit more and it's not going. And then when you find out, when you take it apart, so basically when you get to a point like that, somebody always told me, you know, if you're doing, especially during mechanic work, some of the guys that I worked with and some of my mentors over the years, they say, hey, if it don't feel right, stop. So if you tighten that up and you know you only got the bolt in halfway, or the nut in halfway, it's not going, it's getting hard, it's getting tight, and you hear it kind of like the bolt screeching and hard, like, and it's not going, it's better to just stop, back up, take it off, take the stud out, see if it's cross-threaded, and if you can repair it, go ahead and repair it with a tap and die set. And if you need to replace the stud, replace it. Unfortunately, if you got to replace it, you got to go down to the dealership and get it, or some place that specializes in selling BMW parts. So that right there just make your life go a whole lot easier. So now that that's out of the way, I'm ready to stick those turbo coolant lines in there, which is not going to take long. And then I'm be ready to put the turbo back on. So as I was mentioning before, it's good to take a little bit of some type of lubricant. So in this case, I use a little bit of Vaseline, put on there, and that's going to help them when I get ready to put those in. It's going to make them just slide in there nice and good. So I'm just going to make sure that the area around here is nice and clean. There's not a lot of dirt and stuff around there. So, and if everything's good, I'm just going to slide it in place. So I can kind of feel where that one goes. Stick it down there. And once it gets in, it's just gonna, a lot of times you hear it just go into place there. Alright, so this is a turbo for this engine, this N20. So this turbocharger, and that's where the turbo coolant lines go into right there. So I was just going to talk about it a brief bit. So this is the housing. This is where the oil feed line or the oil supply line comes in. So it gets pressurized oil from the engine into the turbo, then it drains out down here. So that keeps the turbocharger lubricated. So, and there's some seals that internally seal it off, like the turbine and the shaft seals. So we normally spin this right here just to make sure it's spinning good, because in some cases on the vehicles that have boost pressure faults, because the car has sensors to know that, you know, the pressure is not being built up right. So every now and again, not pretty much too much on N20s, but every now and again I have replaced maybe a couple turbos because it was seized up. So, and a lot of times if it doesn't spin free, like this one here spins free, so when you spin it, it's spinning. It's probably better if I spin it from this end. You can see it. So it's spinning nice and good. And in some cases, like when they're starting to bind up, like they'll spin a little bit, but they kind of have like a little bit of drag or resistance. So that means that the impeller is going bad. So it's like this right here is the blow off valve, and that's the inlet area where it sucks air in, and this is the charger pipe. So let's see. So this is the air that goes to the throttle body over here around to the intercooler, and this is the wastegate area over here. So the wastegate, this one is working nice and good. It's not binding up or anything. If it does bind up, it will set a fault. And in the other video, I mentioned that I took the wastegate actuator off. On this one is electronically controlled. So this right here is the wastegate actuator. It's electronic on this one. Some of these do have vacuum actuated wastegate control valves. It's like a vacuum actuator versus an electric one. So this right here is basically, it's got some smarts to it. What I mean by that, between this and the computer, it can kind of communicate to figure out if it has a problem with the unit. It can also diagnose the movement of this wastegate. So if it doesn't open and close in a certain amount of time, it can throw a fault saying that it's sluggish or binding. So what I kind of mean by that, typically what it does is, that's a lot of sensors and actuators on your vehicle. That's electronic control, like the throttle body on most modern cars. It's electronically. You got a what they call drive-by-wire. So basically, it's a couple of sensors in here that monitor the performance of this. And pretty much every time you get ready to, before you start your vehicle, when you turn the ignition on, when you first turn the ignition on, it does what's called a self-test. So it's like a test cycle. So basically, it'll move this thing out to open it up, and it'll bring it back to close it up. It does that all in a few milliseconds, like zoo, like that. So basically what that does is, if it passes the self-test, it knows that, you know, the system is fine. But during that movement, when it opens and closes this thing, full open, full close, and like something fails, if it takes more than a few milliseconds, or if it notices a little bit of that it's taking, you know, a little bit too long to do that, it's looking at the current draw and the amperage inside of there to tell whether it's a problem. And that's when you get check engine lights and faults for different stuff. So the most typical is, like I mentioned before, I replaced the turbo for the boost pressure, which this doesn't have anything to do with that. Well, it kind of does. In the case of, usually this right here is just monitoring the wastegate, but it does control the boost pressure. So, but you have boost pressure sensors on the vehicle that, you know, monitor, you know, the boost, and it knows where it's supposed to be. And if it's not there, it's going to set a code. So typically, if the boost is not building like it's supposed to, you got an issue with this turbine getting stuck or freezing up and not spinning like it's supposed to. So if they're not spinning like it's supposed to, then you get a code for the boost pressure being too low. But this right here, to me, this right here is just monitoring the opening and closing of this wastegate. And if there is, and it's determining whether, hey, my motor is bad, or if there's too much amperage here, and it knows that that's hanging up, it knows that, hey, your turbocharger is binding. Because we got a test plan that'll tell us, like, it'll tell us to actually remove this linkage and kind of check this for binding. So it kind of knows, like, and then if this is froze or not moving freely, it's going to tell us to replace the turbocharger as a result of that. But just talking about this for a little bit. So next up, what I'm about to do is I'm going to replace these seals right here and right here. So those are O-rings that seal the oil supply line, one at the turbo and one at the engine block. So pretty much while I got this out, because this is a pretty, I guess you would say, labor intensive job. It's really not that bad because I've done a few of them, but you know, it's something like, hey, while you're here, you want to replace all the necessary things, because if you don't, it's one of them situations where, you know, you get this thing back together. Yeah, I fixed the coolant leaks, but now I got an oil leak, or because I didn't replace the O-ring. So it's just cheap insurance to just go ahead and replace everything that you disturbed. I'll also be replacing these gaskets right here between the cylinder head and the turbocharger. All right, so remove the oil feed line. I'm about to remove these O-rings. Get those replaced. These right here, the new ones. And this is the side right here that goes to the turbo. And this one, I'm gonna put it back. All right, so what I've done, I'm putting this oil feed line back in here, and I lubricated a little bit with a little bit of petroleum jelly just to help it slide on. So it should slide in nice and easy like that. And then I'm just gonna get the screw started. And jam it home. So just gotta line it up a little bit. It's kind of hard for me to do that whole camera at the same time. There we go, that's it. So got the O-rings in place. I kind of know that I didn't disturb this one, but I mean, I'm looking at these old O-rings, so over time they get a little tough and worn out. These really don't look too bad, but just the fact that this thing's been, I would say, slightly overheated, that things get hot, those turbo coolant lines were leaking, so maybe this thing wasn't able to stay as cool as it could. So just for safe insurance, I mean, even though that's the oil feed line, I only had to take this part out, but since, you know, I had both O-rings, it's like, it's just good insurance to replace that one, because this is kind of at the top, and the only way to get to it if you had a leak is to remove the turbo. So that right there would suck. So, all right, I'm about to start. I'm gonna swap out these seals. I'm gonna start going back together. But before I do, I mentioned that I was gonna point out kind of give some pointers about the torque sequence on here. So pretty much, once you get all your bolts in and kind of snug, you want to have even pressure, but it's kind of like tightening anything else, like an intake manifold or regular exhaust manifold. You're kind of gonna start in the middle, so it's pretty much like 1, 2, 3, and then you go, you know, here and here, and then there and there, and then here and there and there and there. So I think that's pretty much. I know for sure 1, 2, and 3, and then you kind of just. I think 5 and 6 are over here, and 7 and 8. So I believe that's the sequence. I think I got a picture of it somewhere. I gotta find it. But pretty much you get it snug. I think it's 8 millimeters to join it, and then the final torque is like 13 Newton meters. So I'm gonna go ahead and swap out these gaskets and get it in. And the next time you guys see it, it will be on the car, well, on the engine. And then I guess I'll start to torque it down, and if I need to do some more filming, I'll do that. All right, I'm getting in here, getting ready to tighten this bad boy down. Just kind of getting the nuts on here, preparing to get it snugged down. Alright, so what I'm doing now is I'm basically, I got the turbo almost snug. I'm following this torque sequence here. And then I took a picture of it on my phone. So you may can find it on Google, I don't know. But yeah, so basically just going around it, kind of snugging it up with even pressure. And then I'm gonna start torquing it down. And also, I use my power tool where I can, just kind of just go through it till it's about snug, and then when I get it all snugged up, I got my torque wrench here. So this is a 3/8 snap-on torque wrench. So we use this. So this torque wrench is I think they call this the tech wrench. So this thing can do from 5 to 100 foot-pounds. It can also do angle torque. It can do angle torque and all that good stuff. So a lot of times when you're doing a lot of jobs where you have to torque the bolts and then do an angle torque, you can do that kind of either in one step or 2 steps. So it's got things built in here. So it's pretty cool. I've had this for several years. So I love it. So sometime when I'm filming footage or I'm talking about stuff, I may go into talking about, you know, some of the tools I use and things like that. So I've accumulated a lot of tools over the years. So I definitely like the Milwaukee brand of things. I've been using, I prefer the Milwaukee power tools over Snap-on and Matco power tools because their batteries last a long time, and also you get a 5-year warranty on any Milwaukee tool that you buy, and it's just more interchangeability. So the M12 battery line and the M18 battery line has been out for like years now, and all they do is make new tools and new innovative tools, so they don't change their battery pack after, you know, 3 or 4 years, where like Snap-on and Matco, they're always changing. Like every 3 or 4 years they change up the battery pack, and then some of the batteries don't really last that long on those tools in my experience. But I like a lot of the Snap-on and Matco tools, so I'm using the Matco ratchet right here. And that's that. Alright, so I got all my bolts snug, and I seem to be having an issue with what they refer to as number 9. So I'm about to, so this one right here, that top one there, as you can see, all the rest of them are snug, but that one's not tightening up for some reason. So what I'm gonna do is remove it, and it's coming out with the stud. So now this one, I don't recall having an issue with this stud right here. Those were staying in the block. So, but I might have an issue. So I got my tap and die set, so I'm just gonna go over to the bench, take it apart, re-thread it, and try to go back in with it and see what happens. Alright, so here we go. So I took it out, put it in my vise, and sure enough, it is slightly cross-threaded for the first 2 or 3 threads of the stud. So I'm doing this, and hopefully that will get it taken care of. So sometimes stuff like that will prevent you from getting your stud started, and it's, in my experience, when you're trying to like put this nut on, if it's not going to go, it's just going to stop. That's pretty much what it's going to do. And you got the some people keep trying to go forward with it, and they end up breaking something. So pretty much that's what I was saying earlier. Like if it don't feel right, you know, stop, back up, take it out, and try it again. So I'm trying to see how this nut feels. This is like one of those locking style nuts. So I'm trying to put it back on, but if it still give me, because I've already repaired the threads, but if it gives me like a hard time, I got some PV Blaster here too. But if it gives me a hard time, I'm just gonna I'm probably gonna break out the tap and just re-tap it. But it seemed like it was going on. But it's supposed to grab a little bit because it is a locking style nut, so they don't back out. So I think it's gonna be okay. So I'm gonna go ahead and put it back in there and see what we got. And once I get that torque down, I can do my final torque once I get number 9 in there. And the thing is, I guess by me, because I was able to tighten most of the bolts up here through the top of the engine compartment, and I was kind of going around it. I was going down there to get the ones. So I think it was 7, 9, and 10 down there, or 9 for sure. 9 and 10 is on the outer edge. I think 6 is down there towards the back. So it's like 3 bolts at least that I was going down there to get, and I didn't notice that that one wasn't fully tightening up until I actually just visually saw it. And then, you know, I'm like, whoa, that thing ain't going in. So, but it ain't no thing. It's just, you know, pretty much all of the turbo jobs that I've done on these N20s, like as you're pulling the bolts out, you 2 or 3 studs are gonna come out. So you can either buy new studs and replace them, or you can put them in the vise and try to get the nuts off. Sometimes they're not maybe cross-threaded. It's just those are locking style bolts, so they got enough tension to pull out the thread. But a lot of times when you put them in here, you can get them to work loose. Like if you put this in a vise, you can get it to work loose. But if it doesn't work loose, then you have to try to put in more, either tighten this down more. But some of them, in rare cases, a small percentage of them, like I had one on here that wouldn't come out, and I basically had to, like I had a backup stud to put in it, so I was able to get that taken care of. But to me, it's kind of inevitable on these N20s. Like if you're doing a turbo job, taking the turbo off, and like you're gonna have 2 or 3 studs to come out. A lot of times, you know, you can put them in the vise and be able to reuse them and just put new nuts on them. And in some cases, you got to replace at least 1 stud. All right, so what they refer to as bolt number 9, or the nut for number 9. So the stud somehow got cross-threaded, so I pulled that back out and I cleaned it up over on the with the tap and die set, put it in my vise. So everything's good with that. Got that in, got it snug down. So now what I'm doing is going through the final torque process of where I'm torquing all the bolts right now. I'm on number 4. So what I'm doing, torquing down to 14 Newton meters. This right here is number 5. Where I got the camera at, you guys probably not gonna be able to see it. But it's the second one at the top from the back. So we gotta get my torque bit inside the screw, and then there we go. So that was good. So I'm gonna finish getting all these things torqued up. So for the tool that I'm using a modified, my camera's probably not gonna zoom in on here because of all this light, but I'm using a modified macro socket. And what I did, I basically punched it out. I did this at work, of course, but I shortened it up so it'd be the perfect size to kind of get in here, because it came about maybe 1.5 inches longer than what you see now. So I put it in the vise, basically took a punch, knocked the center part out, knocked the bit out, the T50 part, and I took a let me see if I have that with me. So I took this tool here. I just so happened to have it at work with me that day. So a cut off tool, and I basically cut this off to make this shorter. And I used a hammer and I think a T45 or something socket. I forgot what size socket. No, I think it was E14 Torx, because for some reason T and E's are different. The external torque sockets. And I hit it on a good table, and I was able to get it down in there so they can make a tool. So you can do that with any Allen socket or Torx socket. You can get them from AutoZone, Napa, anywhere they sell tools. As long as it can come out, you can do that and cut it and make your own tool, different sizes. So that's gonna be the tech tip for the day. All right, so what I'm about to do is because it looks like the battery on this camera about to die before I swap it out. I'm gonna go ahead and get me a little something to eat. And well, before I go get something to eat, I'm gonna go ahead and torque the rest of these bolts down, and then I'm gonna go ahead and get something to eat, and I'm gonna finish putting this thing together. I gotta put like a few brackets. Of course, I gotta connect the turbo coolant lines, and then it's a gasket for the oil drain line. Then put the catalytic converter in. So I'll fire up the camera in between and get a little footage as I go. Man, this thing will be running and ready to go down the road. All right, so what I'm doing now is I'm going through and I'm doing my final torque sequence. I've already torqued it down once, but a lot of times I like to double check it. So I do it a second time just to make sure all the bolts are still, well, the nuts in this case are torqued to spec. See, sometimes you can see that even though it was already torqued. So typically anytime you torque anything down, whether it's a valve cover, intake manifold, or anything like that, like the first pass, you still could have some of the bolts in the middle that, you know, need to be torqued a little bit. So that's why I do it twice. So I've done 3 so far. So I'm gonna go through and do the remaining 7 because it's a total of 10. And that's gonna be good to go. All right, so I've made a lot of good progress on this thing. So I got the bracket in. So that bracket right there. So basically, that's like one of the front brackets that go to the turbo, and there's 2. It's a little tricky to see because my camera can't get down in there. And there's 2 like E12s that's secured to the front. I'm gonna go ahead and swap this out because it got wet. But so that's the gasket between the cat, well, the turbo and the catalytic converter. So this right here is the electronic wastegate controller. So I've talked about this a bit. The reason why I took it out in the first video. Basically, took it out just to have a little bit more space, and also to help me with removing the turbo, so I don't run the risk of damaging it. Alright, so everything is rolling along pretty good. I pretty much got almost everything just about buttoned up on this thing. So I got the catalytic converter in. I still have to tighten that clamp. I got the O2 sensors connected back here. Got all the routing for the wires for the O2 sensors in place and routed up. So I got a few things up under here to tighten up. So I really didn't get a chance to get a whole lot of footage going back together with it. That's just because I'm just trying to get it knocked out. I mentioned in my other video how I put some marks around the cat, the turbo, and the clamp, so I can pretty much clock it and get it positioned back to where I had it. So I pretty much just gotta tighten these bolts up. I'll be ready to put the exhaust in, or connect the exhaust, and then get the coolant in there and get this thing up and running, and make sure we don't have any further leaks. All right, so in my other video, I mentioned that this valve cover gasket is starting to leak. So you see down here around the perimeter, it's starting to have a little seepage. And more importantly, what I noticed is this right here. So a little bit of oil, because there's a gasket under the valve cover gasket that goes around here on the inside. It's like one here and one there. So it's starting to leak around the area where the spark plug tubes are. It's not getting down there yet, but it's just starting to kind of seep out. But it is wet, but it's not to the point where it's leaking down on the exhaust. But I did let the client know about that, so I took some pictures, but I haven't sent them to him yet. But that's usually what I do if I see something. That's pretty much what happens when you're at your local independent shop or you're at the dealer. You know, it's like they do a visual inspection, and of course they find something and give you an estimate for it. So it's kind of crazy, you know, because but he was pretty cool about it though. But a lot of times customers are like, you know, they take their car in to the dealership. It's almost like you going to the doctor. It's like, man, I hope they don't find nothing. I hope they don't find nothing else. I hope everything is all good. And I'm gonna get all green checks on my inspection sheet. But you know, but I just happened to see that while I was doing this job. So you know, I try to be upfront and honest with people, let them know like, hey, if you got a leak or something that's gonna be an issue later on. So, but yeah, but that's that. So I'm going back together with this thing. I'm gonna get the cat in, and then I got this heat shield to put in. And after I connect the exhaust up down there by the cat, this thing will be pretty much almost ready. It'll be to the point where I can put coolant in it. So I'll probably go ahead and put coolant in it after I put this on. And then I got some trim pieces to put back in it. Still got to put the air box in here. This tube goes right here between there and there. So that'll be going in shortly. And then of course I got some stuff up under the car in the back, like the air filter. I mean the air box, which goes here. And after that, we'll be ready to get the party started. Be ready to start this thing up. All right, so here we go. I'm almost done with this thing. Pretty much am done. Got everything underneath connected. Got the exhaust connected. Turbos in. Got all my connections in. Everything's hooked up. So right now, I got this system under a vacuum. I'm about to do what I'm about to do now. We refer to this as vacuum filling the cooling system. To me, it's just a much easier and faster way to fill the cooling system. Right now, I got the system under a vacuum. So I'll typically leave it under a vacuum for 2 to 5 minutes just to make sure I don't have any leaks. Of course, if anything was leaking, this gauge here will start dropping down. So I'll talk about me using this in several other of my videos. One probably of the more recent ones would be the expansion tank I replaced on this car. So you guys can check out that video to see what everything I did and me talk about this airlift system. So I'm about to fill the cooling system shortly. Then I'm gonna be ready to pretty much get this thing ready to start up. So I got a few more things to connect. I gotta put this partition trim back here, and this right here is pretty much the hot wire. It goes over here. That powers up the supply module for the engine computer, which sits on top right there. So since I had the oil pressure line out for the turbo, I'm probably gonna prime the engine. So I'll talk about that in a second. All right, so I've had this thing under a vacuum for a little bit, and pretty much while I had this thing under a vacuum, so that's pretty much my leak check. So if the vacuum starts to drop down, then you know you got a leak. Then you can bring out your pressure tester and check for leaks. But right now it's probably been over 10 minutes. Because while it was under a vacuum, I took that time to put together some of the trims to get everything almost back together. So pretty much all that's left to put on is the engine cover there, which I got sitting over here in the corner. So I'm gonna go ahead and start to fill the cooling system. So wrong jug of coolant. So this is brand new coolant. I got another new one right here that I got because I've already pre-mixed this one 50-50. So I got some of it here, and the rest of it I basically poured in this jug right here and mixed that with some water. So this is it right here. So this BMW coolant from the dealership. Also mentioned in the other video, in part 1 of this, that all the parts to repair this came from the dealership. So BMW original manufacturer parts. So all the seals, the gaskets, the turbo coolant lines and things like that that I replaced are from the dealership. So that's in there. Can't hardly see the hoses, but you know, so everything's good. I'm glad that I don't have any leaks. So I'm just gonna let this thing rip and fill it up. So basically the vacuum is just gonna pull it on in. And you can see how fast that thing fills this coolant system. This probably ain't gonna be enough, so I'm about to stop and add that over there. So pretty much when you hear that vacuum, that's just because of the angle of my hose in the jug. But I got a feeling that I'm gonna need some more that's in this jug right here. So once I'm done with that, see, it drops down pretty quick. Alright, so I just went back there, plugged the battery up, hooked up the negative cable, and I mentioned that I was going to prime the engine, the oil system. So the only reason I know to do that is because I've been working on these cars for over 17 years on the dealership level. So I got a chance to learn a lot about these engines and the proper processes to work on them. So what I'm going to be pulling here off the engine computer is the plug for the ignition and injection. So this harness here goes to the fuel injection and the ignition system. I'm just going to kind of just slowly work it off. Plug it. So basically this keeps the ignition coils from firing and the fuel injectors from working. So that's basically this harness right here that goes around. Actually, it goes around right here. And you follow it and it goes there. So that's when I got disconnected. And I'm gonna hop in and probably spin the motor over for about 20 seconds or so. Hopefully there's enough juice in the battery. I'm getting well, so far right now the check messages just let me know that the hood is open. I'm not sure why it's telling me that the coolant level is still low and I just topped it off. So let me cycle the key and see if that goes away, because I just filled it up. It's technically full. So it's still saying it. So maybe the level sensor is sticking. I do got the car jacked up a little bit, but I don't think that makes a difference. But we'll see. Alright, so let the engine run just for a few seconds. Then I just turned it off just to check, make sure I don't have any leaks or anything. But basically all the coolant, all the old coolant residue and stuff that was on the engine has to burn off. So that's where that little steam is coming from. So I'm just gonna check up under it, make sure everything's good. So far I'm pretty excited that I don't have any exhaust leaks or anything. So everything looks pretty good. Everything is looking good. So I'm gonna start it up and let it run for a little bit, and then I gotta put some under panel trims under here, and I can take this thing for a test drive. Make sure everything is good. Alrighty, so this is it. It's back together. It's running. Getting it cleaned up a bit. So I'm gonna pretty much get all these trim covers back on it. Gotta put that cover right there on there. So I'm not sure why it's still saying that the coolant level is low. I'll clear the codes in a little bit. I mentioned previously that it has some codes for the coolant temp sensor. I'm not sure if that's the water pump or what, but there's like a little noise up under here that I've never, not sure what that is. Not sure if that's the alternator whining or what. It's like a little, kind of like a little whining noise that I typically don't hear on these things. But it's back together and running good. I'm actually gonna turn the AC on just to make sure that the electric fans are kicking on. Or the electric fan. That's always something good to check. That way I know the engine can be cooled down like it's supposed to. I didn't have to unplug the fan, but I want to make sure that it is working. Alright, so that's it. We're about to wrap this bad boy up. So I appreciate you guys for checking out Cool Fred's Bimmer Tech. Again, I appreciate it. If you like anything in this video or this series of video between part 1 and part 2 of me replacing the turbo coolant lines and taking this thing out for a test drive, checking it out, just kind of showing you guys you know, a little bit of my expertise and the things I do. So if you guys see any value in it and things like that, please like the video.